Hey guys, today we're doing a Q&A or an AMA if you can call it that after a pretty long time. But before we do that, a special thank you to each and every one of you who have been watching this channel over the past few years and made it possible for this to happen in the first place. I'll be honest, when I started this channel, I didn't think we'd get here, and I started with my fingers crossed, but here we are. We're slightly short of 1 million subscribers, but we'll get there soon. So the first question comes from Shweta, and she needs help finding a house in the UK. If I'm being really honest, finding a good house in the UK is probably as difficult as finding a job to move to the UK. I'm not exaggerating. Where we are right now in the UK is that most of the properties have had quite a steep increase in rent over the past few months or years. And at least from Maidenhead and what I see is there are a lot more properties on sale right now than properties on rent. So obviously that means there's a shortage of properties in the UK, and that also means the speed with which you address or get in touch with any of the properties that are available is extremely important and honestly determines whether you'll find a house in the UK or not. Now, typically I'd say check Open Rent and Rightmove, and most of the houses that you find will be listed over there. And if you're really desperate, of course, you can check Facebook and Zoopla, and if you're a student, you can check Spare Room and Room Go. But I found this house, the house that we're in right now, on Open Rent, which lets you get in touch with the owners directly. Now, the next question is from Neha, who says she and her husband are in government jobs. An agent is helping them find a Tier 2 sponsorship, but they have to find jobs. And they work in human resources and the library field. And they have 2 kids, so should they migrate? So here's the thing, Neha. If you are to get a visa in the UK, you have to get a job first. That's how the skilled worker visa works. If it's a Tier 2 visa, it could be a skilled worker visa, it could be an ICT, which is an intra-company transfer, or a Minister of Religion or a sports person. I'm assuming it's not Minister of Religion and sports person because of the jobs that you've spoken about. And it's not an ICT either because that's a transfer. So I'm assuming your agent is trying to get you a skilled worker visa. Now, here's the thing. If your agent is offering you a visa without a job, that is hugely problematic because it's illegal. And here's the thing, you'll probably come to the UK and then you'll have to look for a job. And you're going to realize that it's a little tricky because, of course, it's not very easy to land sponsored jobs. And the second thing is because there'll be a job code mentioned in your visa letter, and you'll only be allowed to look for openings within that job code, which is a problem, because you're now stuck in this box. So if they apply for a care worker visa for you, and it's a bogus company which obviously has no operations in the UK, when you come here, even if you're a librarian or if you're an accountant or anything, you have to look for only openings in the care worker sector and you can't look for anything else. So please keep that in mind before you decide to go ahead with this. And like I said, once again, this is illegal. The next question is about finance jobs, and it's actually a lot of questions about finance jobs, so I've put them all together so you can look at all of them. Here's the thing. Finance jobs are not the easiest to find in the UK. It's not unheard of course you can get finance jobs, but the most popular jobs, the easiest jobs to get in the UK are healthcare followed by tech. Finance is nowhere at the top. One of the solutions you can consider is getting a transfer. So for instance, if you're Indian, and you'll know there's SBI and there's ICICI, and all of them have branches over here. So if you work in any of these companies, it's always easier if you can try and get a transfer to the UK branch. Another thing you should keep in mind is that a lot of financial processes here have their own equivalents, so some minor changes when it comes to the UK. So a lot of firms in the UK prefer to hire somebody locally than someone who's from outside the country. And depending on the role, you might actually need to get certifications to practice in the UK, like the FRM, ACCA, CIMA, ACAMS, or the ICA. So if you're absolutely convinced that you want to work in finance and you want to work in the UK, I would genuinely suggest that you get the certifications that are applicable matter to your particular field, and that will definitely give you a leg up. Again, I've made an entire video on this whole process, which is this video, which I will link in the description. And I happened to see that video today and I realized my eyebrows. Wow. I apologize for those. Now, the next question is from Vinay, and Vinay is getting married and is planning to move to the UK after that. First of all, congratulations, Vinay. Now, if you plan on getting married in the UK, you need a marriage visitor visa. If you plan on getting married in your home country, then you just need to apply for a dependent visa, alright? Now, depending on which visa you need, the cost and the processes differ. It starts from £550 and then the cost increases depending on whether the job is on the shortage occupation list, how long the visa is for, and a lot of other details, which are all mentioned here. We're going to pause for a second because we have some very dramatic dogs over here who are a little upset because they're not getting enough love. I'm just going to keep sitting for this one because of the nature of the question. So, few people have asked if recruitment agencies can help find a job in the UK. Here's the thing. Agencies that can help you find a job in the UK and that are legit are brilliant. Now, the challenge with this is some established agencies don't even bother replying to people. Some do, so it all depends on your luck, your profile, how hungry they are for business at that point, a lot of things. And then there are the agencies that scam people. And these agencies can either charge you for jobs, which I've said they shouldn't, or they'll give you a visa, which they charge you for, obviously, and which they shouldn't. And then you'll come to the UK and realize it's for a job that doesn't exist in the UK, and then you realize you're scammed. Or they can give you a visa and tell you there's no job in the UK and that you have to come to the UK and look for a job yourself. All of these possibilities exist, not great ones. The bottom line is agencies are risky because all of these things that I just told you about are all illegal. So if you do want to use an agency, for starters, do your research before you actually even begin. Check who the licensed sponsor is, check them up on LinkedIn, ask their employees for feedback, ask around about the agency, understand what the entire process is before you get yourself into this. Because the thing is, if you know what you're getting into and you still decide to do it, well, then that's up to you. But a lot of people don't know what they're getting into and they come to the UK and then they realize they're honestly stranded. So don't let that happen to you. And once again, I will please say this, please don't pay for jobs. The next question is about getting sponsorship on a dependent visa and whether there are jobs. If you're on a dependent visa, there's nothing to stop you from getting sponsorship. But the point is that you need a job that offers you sponsorship in the first place. And the good thing about being on a dependent visa is that you have the right to work, so you can work almost all jobs. Basically, you don't need a visa to work in the UK if you're on a dependent visa. Now, if you want to know the scope for a particular job, it's very simple. Spend a month or two checking job portals every few days and checking how many jobs come up for that particular domain and whether they offer sponsorship or not. Apart from that, you can also check how many licensed sponsors there are in that particular domain so that they can offer you jobs, and check how many visas they issued over the past few years, because that will then give you an idea of how actively they recruit from outside the country for that particular role. The next question is on taxes, and I hate this question because it just reminds me of how much money we lose in taxes over here. So for starters, there's income tax, and depending on your income, your tax changes accordingly. The highest is 45%, but it's not a flat rate. Remember that, it's slab wise. And there's this really good website called the Salary Calculator, which if you enter the salary that you're getting, it gives you a breakdown of how much you're going to lose in tax per month, per week, per year, all of that. So that's a really, really good place for you to visit to actually understand how much you will be spending in terms of taxes, income tax specifically. Now, apart from income tax, there is also council tax, which you will have to pay to your council when you start living in the UK. Then there's VAT, that's value added tax, which is on certain products and services. And there's also national income contributions, and you can read up about it over here. Now, the next question is on part-time jobs. And to be honest, I get a lot of questions on part-time jobs, so I'd like to answer that once and for all. For starters, if you could get a part-time job in the same area that you're studying in, that's absolutely great, because then you can show it as some sort of experience that you have when you start applying for jobs. Now, I understand that might not always be possible because it's a little difficult to get related part-time jobs. In that case, just take whatever you get. Most of the job portals that are the leading job portals in the UK also list out part-time jobs, so that's where you should check ideally. And once again, I've made an entire video on it, which is this video, which I will link again in the bottom in the description. So you can just go ahead and watch that, and it explains how much you can expect to get paid, which job titles pay more than others, and where you can look for jobs. The next question is by Nimi on how you can visit the UK without a job offer. If you want to just visit the UK, of course, you can visit the UK on a visitor visa. All right. Can you work on a visitor visa? No. The visitor visa does not allow you to do any sort of paid work or get paid in any form for any activity that you've done. You can, however, sit for interviews with a visitor visa. There's no rule saying you can't. But if you do manage to land a job and you are offered a skilled worker visa, remember that if you're in the country, in the UK, on a visitor visa, you have to leave the country and then go and apply for a skilled worker visa. Now, the next question is from Riona, who wants to know where to buy adapters from. So here's the thing. The first thing you need to do is check the price of adapters in your home country and then check it in the UK. And there's an extreme likelihood that it'll be more expensive in the UK, in which case, please buy adapters from your home country, because you won't need one and two, you'll need a lot more, depending on how many members are moving along with you and how many appliances or electronics you're bringing from your home country. The other thing is, don't buy whatever country you are to UK. adapter. You get these adapters which are just for one country. Don't do that. Buy an international adapter instead, so that even if you happen to travel to Europe or anywhere else, you always have an adapter that can be used in multiple countries versus just one. The next question is 50k sufficient for a skilled worker visa for a couple who's working in the UK? Here's the thing. If you want to know once again how much you're going to have in hand, and for you to understand whether it's going to be enough or not, you need to know how much you'll have in hand. Use the salary calculator website that I had mentioned earlier. And there it will give you a breakup of how much you're going to get paid per month. Now, depending on where you live, this is going to change. Like, your expenses will change, because it could be a lot higher or a lot lower, because the cost of accommodation accounts for a bulk in terms of what you'll be paying as expenses every month. So if you want to know how much approximately you will be paying for rent, it's very simple. Head over to Rightmove and just take any apartment which looks close to what you would ideally want to live in, and use that as a base and assume that's how much you're going to pay per month. And for transportation, which is another big chunk of expenditure, use Trainline, where you'll then get an idea of how much you'll spend on transport every month. Apart from that, if you want to know how much you're going to spend on groceries, I've made a video on the cost of living. You can check the cost of groceries over there. So then again, that should give you a good idea. Based on this calculation, you will then be able to gauge whether 50k is enough for you or not, because 50k might be enough for some people if they're not living in London. 50k might be enough for other people if they are living in London, but they've decided to live small until they manage to get better jobs, or until they decide to make more money, right? So it's very subjective for you to understand whether 50k is sufficient for you or not. It depends on what your lifestyle is right now and what you're expecting. So you can do the calculation for yourself. All right, just 2 more questions. I actually thought I would shoot outside, but I don't think the weather is going to favor me today. The clouds keep moving. It's extremely windy. Maybe I'm just making excuses. Anyway, so the next question is about the ballot, which I'm assuming is the Young Professional Scheme. So here's the thing. At this moment, there's no current information on the Young Professional Scheme. And if we go by this year's pattern, it will happen again in Feb. How many slots will be available, we don't know. But if you do get successful and manage to get through the ballot and you're lucky and you get this visa, the visa is valid for 2 years, and you can work in pretty much any role. Once you come here, you can study also if you'd like to, as long as it's not a professional coach or a sports person, so you're good. And the next question, is the NHS free for dental surgeries or any dental work? Here's the thing. Typically, dental is not covered under the NHS, but there are some surgeries that operate and have some dental procedures that are included as a part of the NHS. In those cases, you have to pay for a part of the procedure, not for the entire thing. The only challenge with this is that the wait time is usually very, very long when it comes to such surgeries which offer dental procedures to be covered by NHS. I called up one of these surgeries in Maidenhead 6 to 8 months ago, and they said they'd call me back, and I'm still waiting. They haven't called me back. But if you do decide to go with private healthcare or surgery for dental, it's a lot faster. You get an appointment within a day or so, but you end up paying a lot of money. So depending on where you are or what stage you're at and what your bank balance is looking at that point, you probably need to take a call. Now, there are a lot of questions which I have not covered today, primarily because this video was getting too long. And secondly, because I'm really hungry and my stomach is starting to make noises, which I hope you've not heard on this video. So I'll make a whole separate video about that. If you have more questions and if you'd like me to answer them in the next AMA video, please drop them in the comments section below, and I will try my best to answer all of them in the next video that I make. Until then, thanks for watching.